the dimension of the ministries of the people that will accomplish this in the last days. He called them his witnesses, and the Lord said he will give power unto this witness. But clearly there are two images of men which the Lord modeled for John in that chapter. From the statement, he said, these two witnesses shall be olive trees and candlesticks of the Lord. These two witnesses, they shall be olive trees and candlesticks of the Lord. This is the identity of the church, or the description of what we must attain. What we must attain. In the season of kings, if a new church must emerge, then there are descriptions in Revelation that are allegorical. There are imageries that need interpretation. But God dropped the information for John in that way, so that by the spirit of knowledge and wisdom we can gain understanding. And he said that this last day church must have two qualities. They must be olive trees and candlesticks. They are the witnesses. These witnesses must have two qualities: olive tree and candlesticks. And there are things that is implicated if the Lord will look at his witness and say, those that will stand as his witness in the last day must be olive trees and candlesticks. He said that when they carry out their ministries, he began to give an example that the ministry they will run will depict the ministry of Moses and Elijah from what we read. That they will have ability to give plagues and to part the seas. They have ability to command. So everything he spoke there was the ministry of Moses. He said they will have the ability to call down rain and call down fire. That's the ministry of Elijah. So these two men who God has modeled and dealt with in the earth, he picked them again as a symbol that will represent the image of his last day church. That the last day church is going to come in the mantle or in the measure of Moses and Elijah. And that reminded me that in the book of Malachi chapter 4, if you look at verse 5 and verse 6, because God is consistent, and when he keeps repeating information in scripture, then pay attention to it. Malachi chapter 4 and in verse 5 and in verse 6, the Bible, those are the two last verses of the Old Testament. Those are the closing verses of the entire Old Testament as arranged by redactors. And the Bible said that in that verse 4, he said, I will send Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. This great and dreadful day of the Lord, which day is that? Somebody say last days. Is the consummation of the last day. The last day of the last day is the great. And he said, before that day comes, I will send Elijah. That is to say that the last move of God, the last dimension of the power of God, the last dimension of the witness we shall see will have the image of prophet Elijah. It will have the image of Elijah. It will have an Elijah dimension of operation. Are you following what I'm trying to say? So that you will know what you are looking for. You will know what you are pursuing. That if you must be relevant before the great, and we are the generation that is existing before the great and dreadful day of the Lord. It is our generation. If there is any season that is coming next, is the season called the great and what? And the dreadful day of the Lord. And if the Lord is saying before that day comes, he will send Elijah. That is to say that the kind of mantles we will have this day is the mantle of Elijah. It must be working in our lives.